Anyone with children knows that full-time childcare can be very expensive, running up to tens of thousands of dollars per year per child. Some have turned to a less costly alternative, the State Department's au pair program, which allows young people to come to America on a J-1 cultural exchange visa. They live with families, providing childcare for a flat fee, regardless of the number of children. This month, a trial date was set in a class action lawsuit brought on behalf of au pairs. The suit charges that what began in 1986 as a cross-cultural experience has devolved into a system providing cheap, exploited labor. NewsHour Weekend's Yvette Feliciano has more.
Ali Petchek is a stay-at-home mom in New Rochelle, New York. She has 3 boys, ages 1 through 8. She says she's enjoyed hosting 7 different au pairs from all over the world over the last 6 years. Petchek estimates she and her husband Charles have spent roughly $20,000 a year on the au pairs who work 45 hours a week. She says that kind of money would get them only about 3 to 4 days a week of part-time childcare from a nanny or babysitter.
Getting help helped our family to function better, I'll say. But the other thing that really interested me about the au pair program was the cultural exchange part of it.
Okay, and when Teddy's done with the brush, Liam, you can do that. Okay.
21-year-old Marisol Peláez Jaques is from Mexico and works for Petchek and her husband. She is one of the roughly 20,000 college-aged individuals, mostly women, who work as au pairs for U.S. families. Both the family and Marisol pay fees to the sponsor agency to participate in the au pair program.
I just think it's an experience that helps you grow up so much. You're completely out of your comfort zone, and you get to see another side, another culture and another family and another tradition.
Marisol is working, but is being an au pair actually a job? That question is at the heart of a class action lawsuit that threatens to upend the way the entire au pair system operates. The U.S. Department of State runs the au pair program, not as a labor program, but as a cultural exchange program.
Bye, boys. Listen to Marisol.
It contracts with 16 private sponsor agencies to recruit au pairs, match them with host families, and make sure everyone understands and follows the rules.
Do you think most people see this as a cultural exchange program, or do most host families see this as a source of childcare?
I think the majority of host parents do see it as a cultural exchange, because I really don't think it works if you don't. Otherwise, I think both sides will be unhappy, because these are not professionals. And I've been told by my au pairs that the sponsor agencies play up the fun aspect of it.
I think Ali was very honest, and she was like, look, working with kids, it's hard. It's not the same as babysitting 2 hours. The fact that you're with them for a whole day, it's really tough.
One of the regulations requires employers to adhere to Department of Labor rules regarding au pair wages. The federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. However, sponsor agencies say families are allowed to deduct 40% for the food and housing they provide, meaning Marisol's pay works out to $4.35 an hour, or $195.75 a week. That pay rate is at the center of the lawsuit, representing 90,000 current and former au pairs. The suit claims that rather than being cultural ambassadors, the au pairs are cheap migrant labor, exploited by a system that grossly underpays them for what amounts to ordinary domestic employment. The defendants in the suit are 15 of the 16 agencies charged with oversight of the program. The agencies deny that au pairs are exploited.
We're talking about a workforce that's working incredibly hard and still not able to make ends meet doing this work.
Ai-jen Poo is director of the National Domestic Workers Alliance, which advocates on behalf of more than 20,000 members who work inside homes, including au pairs.
They are here working as caregivers in the homes of the families who've hired them. These women who are here on J-1 visas have really been taken advantage of in many cases and treated as less than real workers.
Massachusetts has more than 1,500 au pairs. Pu's organization co-authored a report that surveyed former au pairs here at Boston's Matahari Women's Workers Center about their experiences with the program. 2 of the women now work as nannies and asked us to conceal their identities out of fear of retaliation and loss of their livelihoods.
And it's just using you, that you are here to serve me. That's how I felt most of the time.
Both these women say they went thousands of dollars into debt to pay for the interview fees and applications to get in the au pair program. They each claim that host families routinely ask them to work illegal overtime hours and that the sponsor agencies and the federal government were not paying attention.
This family made me work up to 65 hours a week, promised me that they will pay me for the extra hours that I was working. And I'd rather to have more money to be able to save, and that's what I did. Also, those extra time that I was working, I was doing housekeeping. It was nothing related of childcare.
She says her host family never paid her for those extra hours. Among other things, the suit filed in 2014 alleges that you can't legally deduct 40% from the minimum wage for room and board if the program requires au pairs to live with families, which it does. That agencies colluded to keep au pair wages low, an allegation they deny, and that at least 4 of the agencies violated federal labor rules that say families must pay their state's minimum wage if it is higher than the federal minimum wage. A spokesperson for one of the agencies, Cultural Care Au Pair, disputes that contention. He sent PBS NewsHour Weekend the most recent State Department notice regarding stipends, which is from 2007. He says the State Department has never told the sponsor agencies that employers must meet state minimum wage requirements. The State Department, however, told NewsHour Weekend sponsors must adhere to state and local laws. Among other things, the plaintiffs' attorneys are asking for what they say are unpaid wages and the return of illegal deductions. They estimate total damages at more than $2.5 billion. PBS NewsHour Weekend reached out to all 15 of the 16 agencies named in the suit, but none were willing to speak to us in an interview.
There is so much that's wrong about the allegations of the lawsuit that it's hard to know where to begin.
C.V. Harquail is the founder of Au Pair Mom, a blog for host families. She says since au pairs are provided with housing, food, and many amenities, the weekly stipend usually just serves as pocket money. She also believes that ultimately, the lawsuit was spurred by what she considers to be the State Department's lack of clarity.
It isn't the agencies who've set the minimum wage requirement. I think that what would really change the program one way or another would be clearer and more expansive regulation, or more deliberate and concerned oversight governmentally.
The State Department does not spell out how federal wage regulations should specifically apply to au pairs. In a statement to NewsHour Weekend, they also declined to weigh in on that 40% deduction for room and board. They say simply that sponsor agencies should make sure families understand their obligations. Usually, wages are the jurisdiction of the Department of Labor, but it doesn't oversee the program. One Change domestic worker rights advocate Ai-jen Pu believes is necessary.
It is just hugely challenging for most American families to afford childcare. So we need more care, but our policies and our programs haven't caught up to that. I think the answer is more of a systemic answer that allows for families to be able to afford childcare much more universally, rather than take advantage of these caregivers who are here for learning and education and cultural exchange and end up getting exploited with poverty wages.
Host mom Ali Pechek says there is no question the au pair program has been an immersive cultural experience for her family. On this day, she, Marisol, and the boys were welcoming back a former au pair who was visiting from Germany.
Honestly, she's like a member of our family. I'm still in touch with all my au pairs, even the ones who didn't work out. They've become like my daughters, which is kind of nice because I only have sons.
A trial by jury for the class action lawsuit is set for next February. Petchek says she is watching developments closely.
I'm conflicted. I can see absolutely why they would think they're not getting paid very much. But on the other hand, if they win their lawsuit and the agency passes that increase on to us, I can see a lot of families dropping out of the au pair program and not being able to continue. And I think that would be a shame.